Welcome to Business Exit and Beyond. This is a podcast about the journey of Vince, what he's done in his business. We don't want to just talk about his business. It's been quite a journey in his life to get to that point. Many business owners think that someone was great, successful, sold their business for a large sum of money, and all of a sudden it just turned up like that. I haven't actually come across anyone that they've just suddenly just turned up in business. They didn't have all the ups and downs and they just landed up having a successful business. All of them had a journey. Today, we'd like to share with Vince about his journey. How did it all start, Vince? A bit of a background from where you started, what you do, the business of what you did in the roller door business. You actually had a few businesses, so you can share about those as well, which would be quite exciting.
Well, we came out here with my parents in the late 50s, actually 1957. I was only 8 years old. My parents decided to come to Australia for a better life, I guess, as we had been in Italy. So we arrived in Melbourne. We had to rent a place first because 5 kids that we were, we finally found a place in Escondido in Melbourne. And obviously our parents actually had no money when they arrived here in Australia. Yeah, went to school and I started selling newspapers early in the morning. Newspapers, yes. In those days, they all had to be delivered by hand. And in Escondido, there was flats we used to deliver early in the morning. So I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. And how old were you then?
I was about 10 to 11 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So in those days, it was fairly safe in that era. So we started doing that. And then after school, selling newspapers at a hotel in Escondido to help my parents with money also, because at the time only my father was working.
So it's food on the table, so basic.
Yep. Exactly. So it went on from there. We had my 2 sisters. Actually, my brother that is no longer with us anymore. He was the oldest at the time with my 2 sisters. I was the 4th in the family, and I've got another 2 brothers. But yeah, then from there, I got an apprenticeship in Fitter and Turner, and I did that for 4 or 5 years. Then I met my beautiful lady, Silvana. We met, got married within 9 months.
Wow.
Yes, and that was very nice. I was 20 and my wife was 18. So we got married at that age and we stayed with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, which I loved very dearly. We started our journey from there.
Wow.
Yep. Started there. We were with them for 2 years, which helped us quite a lot. After 2 years, we thought we might start a family, and we did. And that was a challenge, but a beautiful challenge. So I had my ambition to achieve in life, that I had to do what I could do for the family, to provide.
Yes. What sort of work were you doing at that point?
Well, I was doing Fitter and Turner in a factory in Footscray, and as soon as 4 o'clock came about, to knock off there, I was going to a service station.
Pumping gas?
And servicing cars till 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And at that time, I didn't have a car yet. The boss was driving me home.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a great help. And starting the family with 4 kids. They're all great. They were very good kids, and they still are. Then the journey kept going. I went to work on a contract basis with a garage door company.
Also installing garage doors.
Installing doors and repairing.
Yes.
And I was doing that for about 6 years, this particular company. And I decided then to go on my own.
Wow. So what year was that when you decided to go on?
That would have been in the
88?
Yeah, 1988. And that was a good challenge. It's a little bit scary because for my wife, she thought, well, going out on your own now, it's a bit of a risk.
Yes. Business is a risk.
It was a bit of a risk in a sense, but I was just sitting at a few business cards and brochures that I delivered on a weekend to different homes.
Okay, so you were going out to the public?
To the public, yeah.
And builders as well, or?
No, at the time, just the public,
Okay.
just the retailing. So that actually worked quite well. And within 3 weeks, I had to put somebody on.
Oh, 3 weeks?
3 weeks, it just took off
Yep.
very quickly. We went on like that for another 2 or 3 years. Then I went into the wholesaling business.
So explain the wholesaling businesses to our audience.
We basically source out a remote control out of China
Okay, yes, yep.
because the costing of trying to make them here in Australia was just far too expensive. We went out, sourced our own remote control product, and that worked out really well. So then I had to have the passion for it, and I loved doing that sort of job.
Right. So it was just your product or other products as well?
It was another product. We had to modify the unit that they were using.
Yes.
We had to make some changes in that to our specifications, and that worked quite well. So at least the percentage was very low of failure, which that's what we wanted.
Yes, which is the key, because you don't want to be locked out of your garage and or you can't get your car out.
Exactly. Now, basically went right through till up to when I was 60. And I was grateful that.
Now, how many people worked in the business during that time? Obviously, you started off with yourself.
With myself, and then
3 weeks later, you had the first person.
Yes, and then that went through for quite a while. But we had contractors that did some work for us because I just couldn't be at 5 or 6 places at once.
No.
So we needed that. I had my kids involved in the business also.
Okay.
Yeah. That worked out pretty well. But then, the wholesale did really improve that a lot. So I had a very good relationship with one of my supplier that was supplying us, which was a Merlin product.
Yep.
Merlin garage doors. Run very well with it, but also I supported them for a good 40 years.
But so Merlin was a business for our
company.
listeners so they can understand.
Yeah, it was a very big company. That worked out very well.
So you had your product and their product.
Correct. Yeah. But their product was basically a well-known brand. So a lot of people knew that brand quite well, but it took maybe 2 or 3 years, or maybe 4 years, for our product to really stand out there also. So then it was a good product too.
A lot of people obviously had a proven product. You bought a new product on the market, so it must have been cheaper.
It was a lot cheaper. Yes. It would have been possibly a good 35% cheaper than the Merlin, V&D or ATA product.
So your first clients would probably been from a building background myself. Builders would have jumped onto that first today?
They would have, because in the end of the day, they built homes.
Yes, for a fixed price.
Fixed price. They just want to put an opening there to put a roll door there or a sectional door, a unit that it works quite well. They don't have to put a brand name on it because
as long as you get the warranties. And
exactly, and we had the good warranty on that too.
Yep.
Good warranty. Yeah, so ended that big way. It was a good product, but I first started before then was V&S roller doors, which I was in industrial type of doors, and that kicked on. Then we blend that in with the domestic market.
So you've got everyone's thinking of, you've just got the roller door you drive your car in. So you've got commercial doors that are in the shopping centres, in the commercial industrial areas.
Correct,
and that sort of
correct.
Thing as well.
Yeah. But obviously we didn't manufacture those. We're buying from larger manufacturers, and we would get it at a trade price. Then would go out and do our own installation and guarantee it ourselves too.
Because we're part of the podcast of Business Exit Secret Formula. So you were saying at 60, that's when you sold, or you started to think about selling at 60?
Actually, we sold it at 60 because one of my sons, unfortunately, he just got sick and he couldn't work for me anymore. My other son was far too big for him to take it on.
Yep.
That was the only reason why he couldn't take the business on. So we eventually sold it. The company's actually still going.
today?
today.
Yep.
But unfortunately, nowhere near as successful as we had run.
So you sold it, what, how many years ago?
Exactly 13 years ago.
So you're saying it's not going as well today as 13 years ago?
I don't believe so because they're only down to one employee.
Why do you think that? I hear that your son actually worked for him for quite a period of time.
He actually worked for the company for the next 4 to 5 years. He just saw that things weren't going the way that we were running the business prior before then. So he virtually said, Dad, I just need to move on because I can't see my future in this company anymore. I said, all right, son, I'll set you up again, smaller scale. And he did it. Before you know it, he took after my footsteps. And
So that you must be very proud of that.
I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of him because, look, he's doing it. He's a workaholic,
Yep.
got to admit, but he provides for the family.
So he's doing commercial doors or just all residential?
Now, it's all residential or commercial. He gets his contractors to do commercial.
Okay, so he still services.
He still serves.
With this business that was 13 years ago, what do you think they did wrong? You obviously had a successful model. So if we go back to the brand, so McDonald's, you buy the brand, you buy the recipe, don't you? So virtually, they bought your recipe. What happened then?
They only carried that on for only 12 to 24 months,
Oh, so they didn't follow your recipe?
up to only that time. And then they decided to go elsewhere with the brand of the remote controls that we were using. They decided to source their own unit in China, which was cheaper unit. That doesn't work because you've got a lot of electronics parts in a remote control. And in China, yes, you can buy from China. If you only want to pay X amount of dollars for a product, they'll make it for that price. But it doesn't mean
It's a good product.
it's a good product. And they had
Then it started to fail.
they had a lot of fails in the units. Say, for instance, every 10 units that it was selling, there would have been 4 or 5 coming back.
You go broke, don't you?
That didn't work for them whatsoever. It didn't at all. Coming from a background that they weren't in engineering like I was.
So as a fitter and turner, you understood the whole
concept of the business and the actual work that had to be done in the garage doors. Now I believe, had some sort of 7-Eleven or IGA stores somewhere in Melbourne.
He would say he's more in hospitality type.
Yeah.
So really, with our listeners in mind, you've got a business, right? So if someone's looking, obviously people come to us to go and buy businesses. So you've got someone that doesn't know anything about it really.
That's exactly right. It's not going to work properly that way.
No.
None whatsoever. A business doesn't run on its own.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, no.
You've got to be there. You've got to have the passion to it. And it's a challenge, yes, but you can overcome those challenges by putting in the effort.
Yeah, to do that.
To do.
But you had, so you said your son worked for the last, 5 years. So he's obviously had like 10, 20 years.
20 years.
But he could have utilized all his experience, even though he was inexperienced, to keep the model going.
It could have, but he thought at the time he needed more support. I virtually retired at 60 because we've reached to the stage where, well, we put in so much in the business that we weren't going out. We hadn't even traveled overseas at the time. So
it was really a time your thought, like some of those jobs you were saying you started started early in the morning, finished at 4, then went off to the service station. So you put in some serious hours. Then obviously to build this business, you put in your whole life.
exactly.
And then it was time at 60, it was like, I want to go and live life. Would that be a fair comment?
That is very, but at the same token, that you got to have the passion to do that and the will to keep going with it. I had a great support from my wife at the time. To start off, we got a beeper, a pager in that era where there was no mobile phones that come up later on, which I did buy one. We were having problems of getting to a phone booth to answer the beeper when my wife was answering to give us a job.
Oh, the old pages.
The old pages,
yeah.
So,
I remember those.
Yeah, and it just came, it was a challenge there. You go to a phone booth and there was a washer stuck into the actual phone booth where you couldn't put money in there. But apart of all that, but no, my son, on the end, though, did the right thing by not keep going with my business because, as I said, the buyers that did buy my business, they knew very little of the business. Really, I almost didn't even encourage them not to buy my business because others that wanted to buy it, but they were determined to buy it. They actually offered me more money than what the other buyer wanted to give me.
So did you do that through a broker, business broker? Or
I did, yes, I did. And believe it or not, he sold it in 2 weeks.
2 weeks? So we rang him up, said, I want to sell my business. 2 weeks later or so.
In 2 weeks, and he was bringing 3 people. In that 2 weeks, I would say he brought in about 10 buyers, since 6 of buyers to buy it. Then on the end, it's got to the stage, how far do we go from me? I think that's enough now. Of people.
Well, you're excited to have that many people because a lot of people, unfortunately, today, 80% of businesses don't sell. So to be in that bracket of selling straight away, you're only in the 10% of the market. 10% of businesses today are ready to sell in Australia.
Yeah.
So you're in that 10%, and then you were sold in 2 weeks. So you're in the 0.5%.
Right. That's because my business worked quite well.
So you had good systems and processes.
Good system process where we had some good people buying off us.
Yes.
Resellers, that we relied in a lot of resellers and buying the products of us, mainly remote controls and transmitters.
Yep.
And they were very loyal. They were very loyal.
So the business wasn't, because obviously you moved on, so the business wasn't dependent on you. Would that be correct? So you sold, the business kept going, your son was part of it, so obviously it was an integral part, and it continued all of those years. Obviously it's declining now because they're not following the recipe, but really it didn't depend on you, did it? So you had something to sell that you could walk out the door.
I did. At the time, I did say to him, look, come in early in the morning with the owners and start meeting the people that we're dealing with. And we can start educating them to be involved in the business. But unfortunately, in that particular time, there was a civic war going between in Egypt, the Muslims and the Christians. And he had families over there, and he was a little bit concerned with that. But unfortunately, we only gave him 2 months to settle.
Oh, yes.
So that 8 weeks went pretty quick.
Yep.
And then he asked me if I could stay on as a manager to run the business for 2 years.
2 years? But didn't you want to get out and enjoy life?
But that's exactly right. And once I pointed out to him, I said, look, that's not going to work, because if I was going to do that, I would keep the business. And in that frame of time, I would have made the same money without me selling the business.
Oh, exactly. Well, and you could have built it up and sold it for more.
Exactly, in that period of time. So that wasn't going to work for me.
No.
That wasn't going to work for me at all. And yeah, what I can say is that you've got to be keen. Look, it's a little bit harder today because, like you said before, there's so many businesses going for sale. They don't get sold quite easy. But if there's a will, there's a way. There's a way to do it.
But before you got to age of 60, and obviously you're saying your son wasn't well, and there's a combination of things. Did you ever think before that, say 5 years, say at 55, did you think it's time to start selling and preparing to sell, or was this business as usual?
I still wanted to go right up to 60. That was my goal, to reach that particular age and then get out of there, because I feel that I succeeded in business. I provided for my family. I'm grateful for that.
So giving advice to the people that are obviously at that point, so they're 55, you were 55 and you were thinking, right, it's time what advice would you give to a 55-year-old that's got a business? They're thinking, what do I do? And they go, I've got no idea. What advice would you give to them to start that journey to think about selling and preparing their business, whatever they need to do, preparing themselves as well?
Thing that I can say is that promote the business.
Yep, promote it. Yep.
You have to promote it to let them know that it's a successful business. You get it out to the market. You don't say to people that, oh, it's got potentials to do better and better. It's that potential has got to be done before you actually sell the business. Or at least you know that the business is going well and it'll keep going well because you've reached it to a level where it's a good business to sell.
Yeah, so prove the model, start preparing it.
Yeah.
So if someone just say, I have to sell my business tomorrow, that's not going to work, is it?
No, because they want to know what the books mainly,
Yes,
to
100%.
see the last 2 or 3 years that go by and see if the business has increased in that 3 to 4
sustainable.
years. Sustainable, yes. But look, it's not easy.
No.
But you've got to work with it.
Yep.
Or you put good work into it.
You sold your business for whatever the sum was. You walked out the door 8 weeks later with the money in your bank. Then did you think, oh God, what do I do now? Was that a thought, or you already had things in place to, I'm going to go do this, or?
Oh, look, then we started traveling. We're settled now in far north Queensland where we follow the weather. But at times when we do go back to in Melbourne, I do go with my son.
Yep.
It's mainly to give him the support. We talk while we're driving, doing jobs. So there's still a very good feeling with that, with the kids also and grandkids.
So was it a period of time, that obviously that 5 years that your son worked in the business, I could see that after that, then you got involved, not a day-to-day, but you got involved where you could help out to start again.
Oh,
in that first 5 years, do you think that was a period of time where there was more of a rest after all of those from 20 or back to the days of newspapers at 7? Was it just a time to relax in your world and start traveling? Because what we talk about, the business exit and beyond, is what do you do beyond business? What's your purpose, your mission, and different things like that? Did you have something in mind in that, or is it more of a time, I'm just going to travel the world, I'm going to just come to North Queensland and do that type of thing? Or was it a little bit more where you're searching, or?
Not really. I think I set my goals to that and I stuck with them, really.
Yep.
I did that and I've got no regrets.
Yes.
Whatsoever. So
Yeah.
It's good. I just hope that life can be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You can go with the journey.
So the key is obviously, like, you're not just sitting around here, that you walk for 3 hours a day?
Minimum of 3 hours. I've got to keep myself occupied.
Yes.
And do the walking, bit of stretching in the morning.
Yep.
And do my own gardening, which I enjoy doing.
Yep.
And yeah, hopefully then we can walk with my lovely wife every now and again. So that's good too. That's good.
So to our audience, so thank you very much, Vince, for the interview. And what a journey from from the family coming from Italy, right?
Italy, yep.
All the way through this journey. It's a big journey. But still now here we are in North Queensland. We're actually just sitting around the table at their place at the moment. And you look at the beautiful place, the beautiful things around, like you say, combination of being in the far north and then down in the south. So for our listeners, I hope you got something valuable out of Vince's story and looking at where you're going to go, what you do to prepare, but just that nugget. Start at 55 was that, and then start preparing it. Put that out to the market. Don't suddenly just turn up and say, hey, it's on the market. Because the reason why it sold in 2 weeks is because it was prepared for the 2 weeks. It didn't just suddenly turn up. So thank you for joining us today, David, from Business Exit and Beyond.